Hey guys, welcome to this video. Just going to cover the euro yen. Don't forget to get my free training and join my live trading room underneath. My co-founder is running it right now. So let's go ahead and look at the euro yen. If I start in the monthly, you can see we've immediately reattacked these highs. Now, some of you, most of you should know, if you're tracking sentiment, that there is the Bank of Japan press conference later tonight. Okay, going into tomorrow, about 3 a.m. GMT time, you've got the outlook report for Q4, monetary policy statement, and the Bank of Japan interest statement. Okay, so the interest rate is obviously what governs the distribution of money inside Japan and externally, perhaps. And that's so important because they've been talking about the change and the normalization of setting rates to in line with the rest of the world, because Japan has had negative rates for a very long time. That is why you have seen such devaluing. Okay, you can see here, for example, since 2020, just straight up the yen, straight down in value. And it's the same across the board for most of your yen pairs as a whole. I mean, that started even further back down here, 2012. You then have your dip, okay, and then you've continued. So along with that, notably as well, are very, very small pullbacks. Okay, you can see immediate price rejection and all these candle wicks on every pullback, which is interesting because it tells you that there really hasn't been that south side pushing. And it's just because those rates have been so different. So now having this talk, this press conference later, it has to be something that you're watching and looking out for, because it could change entirely the curvature, if you like, or the movement. If you look at your recent 20 MA, okay, a low moving average, we're still very far off it. That's down at 150 and reasonable support lower down. And, it would take a larger fall to get there. Now, if that comes today, not the whole fall, but a somewhat fall, maybe to this area of early support, that would require a larger change in rhetoric. So although we're trading from a technical basis, we're fully aware that the Japanese yen, or the Bank of Japan more so, could change their rhetoric at any time. I mean, you've just had comments about deflation and things like that. Japan's Prime Minister Kishida, critical place for escaping deflation. He says we'll work on steps to pass labour costs on to customers. So there's lots of sentiment coming into the market and lots of chatter, which could cause a potential change. Now, currently across the board, I'm short on your yens. I'm short biased. I shorted the dollar yen today. And you're starting to see a slight trickle pre-news, pre-press conference. Okay, that is fairly natural. And personally, for me, I would be looking for a long-term short bias as the sentiment changes accordingly, at least even in the nearer term, until you get to somewhat early support, which would be about down here. Okay, I would say if you wanted to buy within a new form downtrend, if it was the case that this trajectory continued, which is formed more or less because of the chatter from the Bank of Japan, okay, basically giving you an impending downtrend, this would fit quite well, and you might get a midpoint in that downtrend to get long. So it would look something like that. Okay, let's say that would be a midpoint, and midpoints in downtrends are normally quite ideal. Okay, and then you might see that you get a slight bounce before you get down here. So you might see something like this. Now, of course, it would just be a case of the Bank of Japan revealing what they can today. What they'll reveal, we'll have to see. But even so, from a technical perspective, it's still a short. That's why I'm happy to short it, even pre-sentiment, pre-news, because I don't know exactly what the news is going to do. But just from a technical basis, I'm fine to get short. Now, as a swing trader personally, what I like to do is I like to space out my orders. Okay, so I would consider slightly higher around here for re-entry. That would come in line with this previous candle wick. But at the moment, like I said, still it's fine as a short. It's reaching back into those former falls. It's just the case that it had risen so early, which gives me a little bit of a lack of negative or downside sentiment, okay, which is why I'd be cautious reshorting. So the reshort that I would take here would be changed from what it would be originally. If you're not in and you've missed the early price action / pull away, I'd say you're probably better off just waiting until you get higher, or at some point retracing within a new form downtrend. But the key thing is here, if the Bank of Japan changes their rhetoric from what they followed for ages, okay, years and years, and says, you know what, there's pressures now coming in, it's probably a good idea if we start to change our approach and we normalize our rates, we take them over zero, and fall in line with the rest of the world, then we may get ideal changes. And it would probably be the case that people start to save their money in yens, because remember, the point is people buy currencies because the savings rates increase and it's more preferable to put your money in there. The Japanese yen as well, it's worth noting, is traditionally a safe haven asset, or has been for a long time, based on that, okay, because it's, it's all much tied in with the supply, the distribution of money, in terms of yens. That's why they're so weak. Japan is a heavy exporter, which helps them a lot as well. But there's only so weak they can let the currency go before it becomes a problem, which is what we're having now. Okay, it's getting to problem point where, the Bank of Japan is starting to think, well, is it really worth having the currency this weak? Is it benefiting us? Do we need to be really careful here? Okay, so just be careful with that. But you can see former market value to the top. You can see where you've previously fallen. You can see it's significant as an area. Okay, so you'll just have to take that in note. If you did miss that entry, I'd probably just hold off and let things go slightly so that you get a better reaffirmed entry. Like I said, you've already fallen reasonably now, which is a little bit of a way. So you've missed your entry, okay? But nonetheless, my long-term bias is short. You would just require that change in rhetoric to basically allow investors, traders alike, to start to invest in the Japanese yen. That's going to pull everything down with it. There's also changing rhetoric about the Swiss franc. I've covered the Swiss franc yen in many areas. But really what we're looking to do is we're looking to take our technical bias and get a good deal to the short side, because we know price has risen considerably and therefore we're shorting high, not low. Remember, we need to buy low and sell high to make money. And we're also doing it in line with sentiment and the impending sentiment, because the chat has already come out in regards to a changing of rate. It would just require confirmation. I would say it's likely if you then get something like that later on in that meeting, it could shock things a lot. So don't just short it because the meeting's going to happen. There's absolutely nothing stopping it going higher. Just be prepared to DCA or just stay off an entry only if that happens. So that's my bias. Thanks for watching. Get my free training and also join my live room. We're teaching everyone live on charts with our own exits and entries. See you there.